Hello and welcome back to Your Session with Sharnee. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to anyone that watched my first episode, which tells you a little bit about what these sessions are going to be. First off, I've had so many problems trying to film this podcast this morning, so many problems with technology. So hopefully everything is fine and it's uploaded and you can all see me and hear me fine. I got myself into such an overwhelm just before I come on the podcast. And then I remembered my coach says overwhelm is a choice. So I decided, you know what, Sean? Yeah, it is. Let's get recording because you've been ready and waiting to get this episode out. So today I'm going to be talking about how I personally combated my overthinking slightly. So now it's a lot quieter than it used to be. I think anybody that says you can stop overthinking completely is either like a Jedi mind master or he's one of those people that sit on a mountain, monks, that's the name of them, monks that sit on a mountain for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks with absolutely no stimulant, just mastering their mind. Or they're just a liar. One of the three. Because I think it's so hard to be able to make you, if you've got a brain that always has a dialogue, I think it's really must be really hard to just completely get rid of that dialogue. So I am just going to be giving my advice on how I've quietened the thoughts down, because just to preface this, at one point this year my overthinking was so bad that honestly I wanted to smash my head against a brick wall until it bled and got all of the thoughts out. And that might seem extreme to somebody that doesn't overthink, but I think somebody that does overthink, this makes complete sense. And that's how bad it had gotten. Well, if you listen to my first episode, I literally wrote in the journal, I can't control my thoughts, I can't control my mind, because it felt like my brain had completely taken over. But now I feel like I'm in charge. I'm not going to get into all of the brain work stuff. We'll do that in another session. But yeah, I feel like I've got a hold on it, which is actually, I feel like I'm making my brain work for me. Maybe that's what I should call it. How to make your brain work for you. Remember that, Sean, because I think that's a good title. So I want to get into a little bit about my overthinking and my little journey. And then I'll get into some practical steps along the way, which I think you can do. Now, there is some things that require you to really get deep and get to the root of problems before you're able to do like the next step. And I'm a coach and I'm looking to work with people. So if you struggle to get to the root of your own problems, hit me up and we could work together, because once you learn how to get to the root of your problems, you're literally basically there in terms of self-improvement and changing your life. So with all that said, let's get into my little story of overthinking. Now, my overthinking is like reading a storybook over and over again, but every time I read it, it's a different ending. So I can go through 50, 100, 200 times reading this storybook again and again, but every single time the ending is different. And this isn't just relationships, like this could be work, this can be friends that I've fallen out with, or this can be something that I've regretted. I often read a storybook with a different ending to something that's already happened that I regret, and I wish all these different endings could have happened. It honestly, it can be anything and everything, and it's overlapping at the same time, and it's chaotic, and it's painful a lot of the time when I'm really in my overthinking. And honestly, it makes me feel a little bit insane. And again, I feel like somebody that overthinks will really understand that. Anyway, back in February was the pinnacle of my I can't take this anymore. If you were here again for my first podcast, then I would have read my journal out and you could I basically said that I didn't want to be here anymore, and I was only here so that I didn't ruin my friends and family's lives. It was that deep, and I will get into everything that happened in sessions of their own. But essentially, really quickly wrapped up, I went to hospital after 3 days of thinking I was hungover. I then needed my heart defibrillated, and then I needed to spend a month in hospital, which was 2.5 hours away from my home. Then I had heart surgery. Found out shortly that heart surgery had failed. Met my ex-boyfriend, who I thought was going to be the love of my life. Then I quickly got pregnant, had a miscarriage. Then my car broke down, which is really minor compared to everything else. But then I collapsed again, got my driving license taken off me, my car got smashed in and needed scrapping anyway. And then just before all this starts, My ex-boyfriend broke up with me. It was a time. So at this point, I am reaching out for support left, right, and centre. And I had my friend here, and my thoughts were so bad that I was now having to like blurt out how the thoughts were affecting me to my friend. And I explained, I'm just repeating scenarios but changing the ending over and over and again for hours and hours and hours at different situations, overlapping exactly what I've just said to you. And she said that's not how her overthinking worked. She said her overthinking didn't work like that at all. And she's always struggled with overthinking. But in my head, I don't know about anybody else now that you're listening to me say this, did you think that everybody had the same way of overthinking? Or did you know that everyone's was different? Because I just assumed we all had these stories that we're telling each other, telling ourselves, but changing the ending. And she kind of asked me why I did this, and I said I just like to feel prepared. I just like to be prepared for every outcome, so that I've got a good way of reacting to it, the best way of reacting to it. Which now I'm saying that, I think some of that comes from, which I'll get into, is me trying to be the perfect human being, the perfect girlfriend, the perfect child, the perfect friend. So that I think, and this is honestly, this might happen in the sessions, I'll just come to realise stuff as I'm speaking about it, and you'll kind of see how my brain comes to conclusions. But now that I'm thinking that, I actually think I'd also like to prepare so that I can be the most calm, put together, articulate version of any situation that comes. Like if I get, say, I work for myself, but if I was to get fired from a job, like I would handle it in such a way that when I tell my friends and family, it's like the most perfect, calm, elegant way of losing their job. Like I think that's what some of it comes from. But she actually said to me at the time, sorry, I've just come to that realisation, but we'll get into that in another session. But something that she realised when I was saying I like to be prepared for every situation was she said to me, like, you've got a bad problem with control, you know, because I also do this thing where if I'm going to message somebody and it's something like a big message, like we've had a disagreement, we're going to have a big message, I pick a date and a time that I'm going to message them. I'm not, I'll message them on Friday. I'll message them in the morning on Friday. And my friend's like, why Friday? Like, you want to message them now? Just message them now. And it was kind of through this night of conversations, excuse me, that she was like, you've got a bad problem with control. And I was like, I have a problem with control. I have a problem with control. And it's changed my life knowing that. Because I've always said I have a problem with rejection. Because I don't want to feel rejected or hurt. So I prepare myself for everything so that the universe can't throw anything on me, like I've already prepared for it. Newsflash, the universe will always throw me something I'm not prepared for, even if I read the story 7 million times. I've never had an ending that I was actually prepared for, ever. But yeah, I was like, I've got a problem with control. So that's the first thing that I would start with when it comes to combating your overthinking. I would try and identify how I overthink and what that could be manifesting. What am I actually overthinking for? I'm overthinking because I need to control the situation so that I know how I'm going to react at the end of something. But yours might not be. And I think the first step is identifying that problem, that where your overthinking stems from. And I actually, when I was preparing for this podcast, I had my friend in front of me and was at a cafe working, and I know she's an overthinker, so I asked her, I won't get too much into it because it's her business, but I said, how does your overthinking work? Because mine works like this. And she explained that she actually thinks of one situation, one ending, and she will prepare and prepare and prepare and prepare and prepare and prepare for this one situation, for this one ending that she's got that she thinks is going to happen. Which is obviously crazy to me because I needed to have like 500 and this girl's having one. Oh, I couldn't. No, even now, like I said, I've quieted my thoughts down, but I've a defeated overthinking 100% now, and I could never just prepare for the one situation. And you know, we spoke for a couple of minutes about it, and we got to the root pretty quickly as to why that was the case for her. And it is looking, it's mad because you never really think until someone tells you, like, you need to identify where these thoughts are coming from. and we identified hers, and it was completely different to mine. So, yeah, that is the first step that I would say to everyone, is to start identifying those thoughts and finding where they come from. And again, I can definitely help you find and identify maybe what your overthinking means. So if you are looking to work with a coach, please make sure you are giving me a message, and I will leave all of my handles everywhere that you need them. So now I have identified that I've got this problem with control, and that's where my overthinking is stemming from. I then had to begin like thinking, how am I going to combat this? Like at this time I'd been through so much, and I realised I was either going to do something stupid, or I was going to get out of this, and I was going to do everything in my power to get out of it. So I thought, what can I do here when my overthinking starts? And when my overthinking starts, for me at this time, it was a situation with me and my ex breaking up. I was thinking of ways we could get back together. I was thinking of scenarios where he begs for me back. I was thinking of ways he doesn't want me back. I was manifesting seeing him in the street all of the time. Like, I was literally like, please, please, you know, when he says, if you look for something, you'll see it. I was literally trying to look for him in every crowd. And I was like, eventually, I will see him in the street. I was manifesting seeing him in a club, seeing him in a coffee shop. I was trying to think about how I would react if I did see him, whether I'd be rude, or whether I'd be angry, or whether I'd be happy, or whether I'd be cutesy, or whether I'd just ignore him, whether I'd take him back, or whether he would take me back. It was just endless. But now I discovered this problem with control, I could now start making the step to what I can do when this comes up. So the first time I started obsessively thinking about my ex and about all of these things, I decided, right, my brain is not going to settle here until I reach out to him and I'll find out whether we're going to get back together or not. That's and it was scary for someone like me, because that means I'm cutting off all the endings and I'm literally just finding out, which means I could get hurt. But I felt like it was the only way. I either message asking if there's a chance to get back together, because ultimately at that time that's exactly what I wanted. I really wanted to get back together. Or failing that, I needed closure. I needed to know no. And again, for somebody that's got a problem with rejection, this was massive for me to have identified, found the cause, and now I'm going to start actioning it, which is very, very scary. Because ultimately I knew that if I did nothing, that means I'd never get closure, and that means my thoughts would just continue to be so, so obsessive. So the thoughts came up, and I messaged him saying, hi, I've been thinking, it was a bit of a shame to throw everything that we had away. I completely understand if you don't feel the same, but I know I'd regret it if I didn't ever say. You know, the thing is, like, I asked everybody's advice about whether I should do this or not, which is another thing that we'll get into a different session. Like, we need to stop asking so many people's advice. We need to trust our own guts. But everyone said to me, at least you'll get closure, at least you'll get closure, at least you'll get closure, at least you'll get closure. I didn't get closure, not at first. He actually ignored the message and messaged me just normal conversation, asking if I was okay, letting me know that he'd been on a holiday, asking where I was on holiday, sending me pictures of him being on a holiday. And I was like, what is this? Like, I've just put myself out there. This was a lot for me to do, and I don't even get closure. The thoughts began again. Oh my God, the thoughts began again. It was obsessive. Now I'm so stressed, because now I'm trying to work out from his messages what is going to happen at the end. I'm like, maybe he's about to like freaking send me a love letter, or maybe he just doesn't want to hurt my feelings, or maybe he just doesn't want to talk about it, but he just wants to get back on track and just pretend like nothing happened. Like, I am going crazy. And obviously, I had now decided I'm going to get out of this pit that I'm in, which means, although it's hard because I've just actioned the last obsessive thought by messaging you, which was hard enough, I'm going to have to send another message and say, listen, I need an answer. And honestly, I think if people have got the same brain that I have, they'll understand this is like huge steps that I've made here. So I messaged him and I said, hi, you know, Meg, I wouldn't have started shouting and screaming abuse at you if you said you didn't want to be back with me, but I think you could have acknowledged the message. I'll take that as a no and my answer as a no, but I hope everything's okay with you, and I hope, we both meet our people in the future. And he said, sorry, yeah, I'm just enjoying being on my own at the moment. I'm ready for summer. I'm excited for summer. But yeah, well, you're great. So I hope you can meet somebody. And oh my gosh, the feeling was crazy. The feeling was crazy. Like, I cried, but not because I was sad that he didn't want me back, which I thought that's what I'd be upset about, but out of like kind of like relief. And I've never done that before. I've never, ever, ever kind of realised that actually there's a way of me combating these thoughts. Instead of me just thinking them, why don't I just action it and just get the closure, so that now I don't have to think? I just never had thought that before. So when I did it, I was like, oh my God. I remember FaceTiming my friend and I was crying and I was like, oh, but I'm not even that sad. He doesn't want to be with me. I think I'm just overwhelmed that I actually messaged him. And for the first time in my life, I've got closure. So now like it's like what my brain's going to think about. And oh, it was like crazy. And since I did that, I've never even thought about whether he thinks about me or wants me back, or whether he'd regret it. I know I won't regret it now, because if you want to have your hot boy summer, knock yourself out. And I don't think that. I'll be very honest, I still think about seeing him, and I'm not sure how I can action that, like to stop the thought of not seeing him, other than maybe writing a letter and maybe saying the stuff that I'd say to him if I was to see him now, or just wait it out and eventually those thoughts will kind of, flow off as I heal, and, the breakup feels more like a fever dream than something that actually happened. But yeah, I've never had the thought of like, what if he has me back? What if he sees me and then I don't know what to say to him? What if we was to get back together? What, like, the thought's just gone, like it's just not there anymore. It's eradicated because he didn't want me back. So what was my brain going to do? Pretend now that never happened? It happened. Like, I haven't even thought about like what I could have done differently, because he didn't want me back. Look, I've got the conclusion. The conclusion is he didn't want to be with me. So what am I supposed to do now? Make up a load of fake scenarios when I've got the facts? Like, it's just not, my brain just can't do it, even if it wanted to try. And from there, from that breakup, my thoughts starting to quieten down. And I have then used that since. If my brain, it becomes really obsessive about one thing, I choose to action it there and then, so that my brain has the answer and it can quiet itself down. But I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I had identified where my overthinking was coming from. So those are your two steps. You need to identify where your overthinking is coming from, and you need to put an action on it. It's hard for me because I don't know everyone's overthinking pattern to be able to give you a pathway to every way of overthinking. I can do if I speak to you personally. I'll definitely be able to help personally, where your overthinking comes from and how it can be helped and how you can action it, but it'll just be completely different actions to what I will have. And there's little things now, like if I'm obsessively overthinking about something and then I make an action, but then I decide to put a date and time on it and my control is starting to take over, I will message them then. I will action it then. That way, I'm taking away that control from myself as well. And it's really just about allowing my brain to know that I'm not going to die if I'm not in control of the situation, that I can't be in control of the situation all the time, because I don't think you'll ever get what you want from life if you're trying to control everything about it. I think the beauty of life is not being in control, but having faith. And whether you're religious or whether you're not, I think you should live your life not being in control, but having faith, working hard and having faith that things will work out for you. So it's been really great for me to have even learnt that I had that problem with control, and I thank my friend every day for pointing it out to me, because that was just something that wasn't on my radar. I just had assumed and identified with the fact that I was scared of rejection, which is another session in itself. There's so many layers and layers when it comes to self-improvement. I would love, love, love for this to have reached people and they've at least identified where their thought has come from. Feel free to write a comment and see if anybody else can help or anybody else feels the same. I hope it all made sense. It's so hard sometimes because I feel like I'm rambling, just being honest, but I also know it works, so I really hope that has come through when I re-listen to this. Again, I'll leave all of my handles down below. I'd love any support. Anybody that is looking for a life coach, looking to help with a heartbreak, looking to change their mindset, looking to the best way to journal, looking to get out of a rut, then please make sure you message me, because literally I would love nothing more than to help. And I will see you in my next session. Thank you.